Do you want to gather around, everyone? Do you remember yesterday I talked about assessing your glue strength? Well, I've made two mixes here. I've made our standard 8:1 mix and I've made a 10:1 mix. And if you make your rabbit skin glue and then warm it through and mix it so all of the little bits are gone and so on, then let it go cold, right, you'll end up with a sort of jelly-like substance, okay? And the way to test the strength of your glue is to break the surface. So just pull it like that until it splits open, okay? Now, that for me is pretty much perfect strength. And the reason I say that is that I didn't have to put too much effort into splitting. Yeah, I didn't really have to yank it, but when it does split, the sides of the split are completely clean. They're not sort of bubbly or granulated or anything like that.
Your hand's in the way.
Do you see?
Perfect.
So nice clean sides to the split and splits without too much effort. Now you'll see this is the 10:1 mix and it's okay too. I mean, it splits a bit easier, but the sides are clean. If you start getting granulated sides, then you know, then it's too soft. Too soft if you don't get a nice clean side to the split when you split it. So that's really also, you see that kind of split out in various places. So this is as soft as I would want it, this 10:1 mix. You can see the difference where that's breaking in a number of places now. I know I've split it across all the surfaces, but this is just doing one nice clean split there, nice clean sides, not too much effort to split it. Okay, so again, it's something you've got to learn for yourself. Please do have a play with what's left of those. I mean, once you've done it a few times, it becomes more difficult to see, but feel free to have a feel of those two mixes. And you know, I'm very happy with the 8:1 mix, but remember what I said is that various brands or batches might vary. So as you make your glue and you become happy with what your mix feels like, that's the way you can sort of test it and make sure it's consistent with what you're used to.
I feel that's soft, yeah.
Hope the jelly. Alright.
So we were using, is that 8:1?
8:1. So, you know, the 8:1, yeah.
Just a bit firmer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Splits nicely.
Oh yeah, so you've got that cold what's left.
Yeah, I was
Funny
testing
enough,
that.
it took a lot less. It took a lot less to do the linen than it did in my trials because I'd used up everything. I did that. Great.
What, is there a maximum amount of time you can reheat the glue before it just weakens beyond use? Or
Well, as long as you don't evaporate any of it.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't let it go to.
every time
But I
you
mean,
heat
typically,
it,
you know, you'll make
weaken
the
it.
quantity that you're going to use within one batch of work.
Right, yeah,
So
yeah.
I would suggest you do 6 frames at a time or something like that, which is a nice number to work with, you know, and that'll be sort of a nice week's work actually. You know, a gilded frame is
Yeah.
quite a few hours work, and with some other things, and then you've got to do the gilding. So you know.
Yeah.
So
Not-
send a bunch of flowers to Daryl, Tom, when you get home.
Okay,
I mean,
so
turning up about 50 frames or whatever.
the next stage. How are you doing with yours? Happy with yours? Do you mind if I use yours to demonstrate the? Right. So I'm going to use Percy's frame to demonstrate the distressing now, and there, you know, there's mine with a sort of nice antique-y thing. We're going to take that down with wax, so we're going to make it more antique-y sort of colouring and so forth at a later stage, but you know, that's roughly where I've got to with that one. So taking your 4/0 wire wool, okay, and I'm going to use this goods section to demonstrate to start with, because that'll give us a sort of baseline, And where this is, you know, got a few little patches in, we're going to want to go for, I think, quite a distressed finish on that, and then with the faulting, just bring it up all to an even level. But the thing to do is, as you rub with your wild wool, and it goes very quickly, so it'll suddenly go. You can do this with damp cotton wool, but that's much more aggressive and will just go really quickly. But if you want to go right through the gold and everything, but this will go through quite slowly. Now again, you need to catch the light until you can see a leaf lay. Now I can start to see a leaf lay there, and you know, the amount you can see that, now you can see it starting to appear. A little leaf lay there, and there's another one, yep. So this one here I'm going to focus on, and now you can start to see the red colour coming through, and then just get yourself a standard to work with. That's how much distress we're going for, and go round the whole frame, bringing it all up to that same standard. But it's a matter of working just really carefully, because if you go too far, you can't come back. So, and I find that using where the joins are, using the leaf lays as a point of reference, and then catch the light to make, you know, all different directions, because you'll find that suddenly you start to see through the gold at a certain angle much more, and so get that angle so that you can you see, Kano?
Yeah.
So you get the angle where you're starting to get the undercolour, starting to really see it. And then you're going to go around the whole frame, bringing it up to that kind of standard. And you know, with my one, I've gone at it quite heavily and distressed it quite heavily, because I'm going for quite an antique sort of look. Because, I mean, apart from, you know, the antique look is nice, and it's painterly, and it's got that real life character and so forth, of course it's slightly easier to achieve as well, because we care less about little broken bits and so forth. Okay. There we go. Oh, there was coffee out. There is coffee. Do you want some?
No, I was thinking, just the times and order this. Of course, the water and everything's on the table. It looks like there's a good coming in first morning.
Not Thursday. Friday is the big day for group. But maybe that's for us. I don't know.
I think they were told us.
What effectively it shows is all my mistakes. Where I've laid bits over and it's like,
No, but it's still really nice.
That doesn't look like the example.
I mean, this side here is fantastic where I'm standing.
But it's quite an interesting one, 'cause it's a bit unusual. It's definitely not uniform, like it should be. Yeah, I think I probably screwed that up a bit. Different now, I suppose, isn't it?
So, I think someone mentioned from a Google post or whatever yesterday about 14 coats of gesso.
Right.
You know, well, we're working with 4 coats,
Yes.
and that's kind of suitable for like our barn door finishes, and for a sort of, you know, for a nice finish, I think, this sort of thing we're achieving here. But you know, you might want much heavier gesso coat. You want the water polishing and everything else if you're to achieve an absolutely perfect finish. And you know, that's really developing your own kind of style and so forth. So actually, do you know, Tim, that if you
I love this.
distress the
I pressed a bit
Yeah.
hard there.
Now I would fault this here,
Yeah.
and you know, fault some bits
Yeah.
where it's just
Yeah,
missing.
yeah.
But you see, that's going to be a nice frame.
Yeah, no, see, I like that.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I prefer this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
don't compare mine to mass.
Yeah.
See,
Pretty crime scene, but still a crime scene.
Okay, right.
I see all
So
my folding there, it's a bit
UV lights
embarrassing.
in a crime scene.
yeah, let's get this photo. Rog, come and bring yours in, and
The comparison.
just everyone's
Quite
comparing.
interesting, a mistake.
Just you try and get a photo with everyone comparing.
And then the
those,
one it's supposed
Oh,
to. Where's the one it's supposed to look like? Oh, Anne Marie and Louise.
self-portrait
Yeah.
with guilty frame.
Guilt.
Guilty frame.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Of course, you don't have to distress. You don't have to distress much. I mean, you know, if you want to keep it just goldy like that, that's fine. So,
Too far, and it
what
looks
we're going
like
to do now is, do you remember yesterday I talked about, let's just have a really quick go with yours, Tim, if you don't mind. Okay, see. And I'm just going to show you the faulting again. So we might need to, the gilding water might have gone a little gelatinous. It hasn't, it's okay. And so I'm just going to work now.
What are you looking for?
Tip. There we go. So, just with a tiny bit of gold there, I'm going to find a piece of suitable size. So you see here, this little bit there, literally I'm just going to wet that with hardly any water, just so it is wet, and really quickly get that on. And using simply the sort of fibres of the, I could use my feather or just the fibres of the cotton wool. I'm just going to make sure that's pushed down onto that water. Now the idea of that is that, you know, I tried to work quite dry, and so that won't take too long to dry, maybe certainly an hour or so, and then I can come back and I can burnish over it again carefully, you know, really testing it out with no pressure on the burnisher and stuff. But we're going to move on now, and we're going to start on our gessoing, which is really today's subject matter. But whenever you've got spare 5 minutes now, just be going over your frames and just patching in little bits, and then as the day goes by, burnishing up. And we'll be coming back now, and we'll be putting black bowl on this and so forth and tidying it up. But you can be doing several things at once. While you're doing black bowl, touching in a bit of gold and coming back to it, so that you just get it to a stage you want to get it to. Now I'm really liking this frame as it is, but I personally would fault in these bits where the gold is simply missing. You know, I love it where it's rubbed right through, and we want to keep quite a sort of broken effect for this frame, because that's how it's developing. Possibly a bit more distress in some areas, but we can do that later. There's no, you know, it doesn't have to be done now. So throughout the day, keep working away at your frames, and we're going to move on now. So hopefully all of your rabbit skin glue mix is now liquefied. So if you grab your glue brush again and give it a good stir, and then simply put 1 15mm spoon of whiting in that mix.
Maybe a little bit.
in the whole mix, yeah?
In the whole mix, yeah, just 15mm of whiting. Now what we're doing here is we're making what we call sizey white, which is the second primer coat.
How many mil? 15?
15, yeah, that's the one, big one, biggest one you got. Well, I believe 15mm is a tablespoon.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that much, but what we've done so far with the
That's
meat
going in the cup.
in the cup, yeah, and then give it a good mix, okay, so that that's thoroughly. Now you should have a slightly sort of creamy white colour there to it. And we're now going to put our second primer coat on the frames. And the way I think of this is, our first coat of primer, the neat rabbit skin glue, soaks right into the wood. Yeah? And now we're going to glue a few particles of the chalk on top of that, which will give us a key for the gesso. And I told you yesterday how this is something I found out from talking to other gilders after I'd done my training, where they told us just do the rabbit skin glue, then go in with your first coat of gesso. And first exhibition I gilded, some of the gesso cracked off. And I've never had that problem since I've put this second primer coat with the Sizey white coat on. Okay, so when you're happy and it's thoroughly on your 2 or 3 throws in Tom's case, and
Crack on, Tom.
now we're trying
Really
to,
making the most of it.
we don't want to, you know, we want this to dry quite quickly. And we're working at the fastest possible speed at the moment, so again you could leave this to dry overnight. But you know, often in the business we do, we put the Sizey white on in the morning and we gild in the afternoon, which is what we're doing today. Gesso, in the afternoon. So, you know, try and get this really quite thin, this coat, not leaving any big...
You're not tempted to use hair dryers? Is it a bad idea? Is it over dries too quickly? Or, I mean, I've done it a lot.
I mean,
But it
I
might
have
crack-
done it
might
many
crack.
times with paint and with other things and,
Yeah.
and so forth, but we try and get organised, Tom.
Yeah. Well, I'm never organised, so I'm always rushing. That's why everything ends up cracking.
No, I've had spreadsheets with exhibitions which are literally,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
timing blocks down to. So if I just borrow
Close up of that one.
someone's, let's borrow yours for a minute. So what we do to test whether it's ready to burnish, you see that's well and truly ready. Ooh. No, that absolutely is. But as it's now that you can hear the difference. I mean, obviously we were on a different surface, so let's just make sure it's not just that. But you see, because obviously Percy had used a lot of water in this area. Can you hear? Can you hear that that is still damper than other areas?
The deeper the... More of
Yeah, I mean it's a, you know, if it's wet it'll be a sort of thud, a dull thud,
Yeah, okay.
whereas it's a click where it's.
Feel it
You see that?
quickly.
Can you hear the difference between that and that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
So don't burnish
you'd want that. You just might want to be careful with. Okay. So. Anyway, now let's just look at this section here. So if you want to just gather round, and it's quite important to get the light right for doing this. And I'll just do a little section at a time because again, so where we've got here, I mean, we can have a little dust off with our mop there and get rid of any excess bits. They will come off as we burnish, so it doesn't matter. We've faulted, you know, to our satisfaction, but we can fault again later, so it's not too much of an issue at the moment. But you want it pretty good at this stage. We've made sure that we're happy, so that's okay. That's okay. It was just round about there, which I'm slightly less happy about. But this is great. So starting quite gently. Now I just want everyone to be able to see it, because you really do have to get the light. But there. Can everyone see how that's coming up now? And so we just rub and rub and rub and rub and rub. Now quite often, you know, you notice I don't hold this way up there, I hold it way down here, because as I say, if you were to do this when it's too wet, you will just completely rip up the base, the gesso and the bowl. The only other thing you can do to wreck it is, if you're holding it like this and you're going for it, which you will do in a minute, and you catch that ferrule in it, you know, that's why I tend to hold it right down by the stone here. And you know, you can use all different bits. You can use the sort of flat on its side like that, and until you're getting. Now where I'm looking here, how are you doing? Can you?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Can you see the brilliant shine sort of appearing?
Coming through there. Oh yeah.
Do you want me to bring the slate over?
Should be alright for the minute.
Okay, so where we were worried about, you know, I'm going at that quite hard. So I mean, not absolutely leaning my weight on it, but I'm pushing down a bit, and you just need to make sure that you've got the light in falling on it in such a way that you can see your results. And so this agate's actually brand new, whereas there's some sort of old antique ones, various sorts around. This looks pretty new as well. I mean, it is possible for the agates to get scratched, in which case they'll scratch your work, and you can use these for a number of different tasks. But so have a go with this. Is obviously a very old one. It's seen, so we should be able to feel whether it's okay, and so we go with that. Then that's working beautifully.
Did they used to actually use wolf's tooths, dog teeth?
Oh, I don't know, maybe they did.
That's another.
Yeah, I can't see why. I can't see why. You know, why bone wouldn't work. In fact,
So probably that would have been.
Yeah, like a porcelain surface.
Because I suppose agate was
Hard.
expensive, so.
yeah.
Sort of semi-precious,
Could you, Caroline? Could you just pop out to the artist's filling station, which you'll find around the corner, and bring in one of the bone burnishers there?
What does it burnish?
Well, you see what they are when you look in the pile there.
bone cabinet.
Another animal on the list.
Bring in a bag of gesso.
Another animal deceased.
Okay, so there we go. So Roger, Percy, there we go, and Tom. Let's just have a go with yours. See, they're all a slightly different feel and different shape, but they're all doing the same job there. And
obviously, gold doesn't react, but is it eventually going to go back to that sort of duller colour?
No.
Or is it going to keep
No.
the shine?
no, it's going to keep this showing because we've compacted the. Whose is this one? Compacted the gold down. So yeah, just interestingly, this is a thing we. I don't think it probably is made of bone. I think it's some very. I don't know if it is. Small bone folder. This is something we sell on the website, which is very useful for a range. Actually, there might be one just behind you somewhere, or on my bench. There's one unpacked. But this we use in the workshop for burnishing tapes down. There we go, Richard. So, you know, when you use what's called a pressure sensitive tape, so any tape that's got, you know, is self-adhesive is actually doesn't really cure until you apply pressure.
Ah, right.
That's why when you pack a box of packing tape, it doesn't really stick until you rub your hands over it. Well, you know, to make sure that if we use that type of tape on mounts and so forth, we use, this is something we use. I'm going to Just let me have a go on yours, Rog. I don't want to risk ruining Percy's there, but just see if you know. I mean, it probably is bone. This thing. Yeah, it does sort of work though. Oh no, that's scratching a bit. I'm not sure if it is. Yeah, but you know that is a bone, and it has sort of worked a bit, and probably because this has been heavily used. It's but anyway, agate's the thing. So there we go. Right, crack on, burnish away. So where you were.
Getting the bobbles out and the finals. Is that the speed you're meant to go at?
I believe you sort of just figure out a speed that works for you.
Okay.
A million miles an hour is probably not the best shout, but
Nice.
per usual.
Can you see the difference?
You increase the
Trying to
pressure.
work out whether it be directional is better.
Is directional being better?
Should you always go like that way, or can you?
Well, you figure out your own thing really, but no, I always go along.
Yeah. Really?
But I use
That's
different parts of
satisfying.
the.
That is.
Wow, look at that. That's amazing, isn't it?
That's pretty shiny.
Furthest to the previous.
I like shiny things.
Yeah. Like a magpie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do this on Tucson Calvin's
Sort of double gilding
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
And this is the sort of Francis Bacon.
Oh yeah. If you're selling in the Arab market,
Yeah.
it's got to be absolutely pristine.
Yeah.
Black and gold.
No, it's nice.
Yeah. But
Nothing. Yeah. Just like the pictures.
Wow.
Makes you really
I do that. One with the short one without the one.
So I hope you would never sort of wax over the top of this, or
Oh,
just
yeah,
stress it a
absolutely.
bit.
We're gonna cover
You would
that.
do that if you wanted to
Yeah.
knock it back a bit. Better. Imagine doing a whole swept mirror or something. One of those swept frames with
Well, you
real
see-
fiddly little bits.
Yes, funnily enough, if you were doing those, you would only probably water gild certain parts. of it.
Right, they missed it.
And
It's alright, I mean, it's occasionally a bit scratchy, but it's a bit thin or something.
okay, can we just gather over his hands bench, and Louise's bench? Yeah.
To see how it's gone down.
Little shimmer.
Yeah.
That is really blue. Did you put on 2 layers more or less?
No.
Just did it well.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Isn't it?
Really nice.
Mine isn't anywhere near.
I'm going rustic anyway.
Okay.
I'll tell myself.
I quite like
It's
this.
an amazingly excuse.
So,
Yes, I wouldn't normally have it.
Oh, sorry, did you need mine?
Really blue.
Good fun.
That's my favourite anyway.
Spot the difference.
okay. So, what's very interesting Tim, do you want to have a look, Tom? There's some areas. You see, if you listen to Anne's, you obviously did gild quite wet. You used a lot of water because this is still quite soft, and so that right level of softness. One of the reasons, and I mean, obviously her huge level of skill is the main reason. So it's come out so beautifully, but there's kind of a little bit of luck that she seems to be burnishing at exactly the right time. And so this is something that everyone's going to have to sort of experiment and learn for themselves. And as I say, because the way we're doing this as a business, we just have a discipline of burnishing the next morning, which generally works out within the right time frame. But obviously, getting exactly the right time, if you're doing the sort of Arab thing and so forth, and of course you might have to do a section, then burnish it, and then do another section and work like that to get, if you're doing a big work and so forth. But even where there's a bit here where then you say, I don't think there's any difference in the agate you're using. That is nice, that agate. But even here, if I get that little section there, pretty much as good as I can get it, and to my eye, it's not just coming up quite as bright as Anne's. It's pretty, it's pretty close, but I can see a difference. You can see it's just, can you see it's not just quite as bright? And that is, you can hear that's drier. That's drier. So we've gone slightly beyond the perfect point, but the perfect point time to burnish will actually be different for everybody, because it'll vary according to how wet you had the the gold in the first place. Okay, so there we go. Now, just something I've started to do, I've just written an R on that in a space where it won't show, and I'm just going to...
That one was mine on there.
That's...
That one was mine on there.
Yeah, no, that's mine on that.
Itemise yourself out there, please. Yeah.
Probably this isn't so important for these, but just while we're doing it, let's do...
Roger, can you swoop that light over in a minute?
Yeah. So if I just write your initials on your everything, or just pass right, just write on the back of everything else,
okay.
just write and pass the Sharpie around, please.
I like it just
Just because when we finish today, probably everything won't be dry, especially these.
Gold finger.
Alright, yeah. So if you just put your initial on the back of it,
Sorry, Matt.
P-T-A-L.
Yeah, so go like
just on the back of every frame and your
And again?
panel and everything.
and like really slowly.
Did you have a pen for that purpose?
Anne's got my Sharpie.
And one more.
See if I've got another one.
And again.
Oh, yeah, can you
just borrow it.
There you go on. And just really slowly pull it back.
gold finger?
Perfect, thank you mate.
Gonna do some cool stuff with that now.
Yeah, in the edit.
Such a cold finger.
But we're going to distress it now. So when you've finished,
Is that one yours?
this is one I did.
So it's nice because it's got the little sheet marks.
Oh yeah.
Well, you see, this is what we're going to see, because, well, again, I got the colour coming up, but a bit difficult to see. But I think, you know, the burnish there
Plug it
is
back in over there.
pretty bright.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't get away with that, did you?
It's always worth a shot.
Yeah, 5 leaves is what I reckon to do that, the studio frame there.
Yeah.
This brush really is molting.
Yeah, new ones always work. Okay, and I think you were out when I was just talking about the, when you're applying paint, and I know I'm absolutely teaching my grandma to suck eggs here, but we talked about getting loads of paint. The way I work is getting loads of paint on and then drawing it out as thin as I can.
Right, yeah.
But there's a next stage after that, which I call drying the paint with the brush. So you just keep on working it till you actually start to sort of, it's almost like towel drying, you know. You're starting to dry it. So when we're trying to get really thin and even like this, it is a matter of, it's not like painting and decorating where you're just getting it on and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, you're really working it into the wood, but also, you know, working any excess off, and you are doing this sort of towel drying type of process, so that you can get, you know, here we go. There's my second coat, and there's no runs, no excess on there, but it's evenly painted throughout, and I've got a nice thin coat of the size you like on the whole thing. Okay, now we're all done with that?
Mm-hmm.
You can leave yours in there. So you can put your things back in the burners. I'll switch the burners off, keep the temperature down. So now, let us use Roger as an example. Put those to dry and take your mini golden wild frame, which is the one that is now red and white.
Oh, it's got a lot darker today.
Okay, and remember I've got my little sample here. So we're now going to bring our frames up to this level. So we're going to put the gilded section, and whereas we've gilded the entire top of our studio, simple studio frame here, which is the tray frame for the panel, but this wild frame, where, you know, it goes over the artwork in the traditional way, we've divided it up into, we'll end up with 4 sections, and we're only doing a hint of gold on here, and quite often we only do a hint of gold, like a little sight edge or a little detail, just to pick out and separate zones of the frame. So now we're going to put the gold on, but to make life easier, we're going to mask that section off. So each of you has a roll of masking tape. This is the masking tape we sell on our website, Tessa, which is a good brand. Try and avoid cheap, you know, masking tapes, because they don't work very well. This, you know, I found to be consistently good. So quite simple, really. The outside bit is easy, so we can start there. Now this is the type of thing I would use the burnishing bone for. So we'll open a new one and then someone can use mine. And just give that a little burnish down the edge where you're going to be working, and just burnish that tape on to prevent anything getting underneath it. And pretty easy to do the outside there, just laying it into this channel right up against the bottom of that little ridge there, and burnish it on. If you don't get it right first go, take it up and start again. Now that's the easy bit. The inside isn't so easy, and what I tend to do is tear the masking tape at a slight angle. Okay, and get that angle into a corner. So make sure that your piece is short enough so it fits within, and then get that up right into the corner there. Just tack that down with your finger, or maybe with the burnishing bone there, and then make sure it's on all the way along, and then start lightly burnishing before just getting it right in there. So we've got to that stage, and then you can do this with little pieces, but that's enough angle as long as it's going away from the thing. If you want, you can use your scalpel or scalpel blade even, just to cut an angle on that. So I want like that. I'm cutting an angle, but I could actually do it completely straight across here, so that I can form that side with that. And then on the other side there, that's the wrong way, that angle, so I can come into this corner from the other direction. And just get a nice piece inside there. Get the point down with my burnishing bone. So we've got to that stage, and then you can do this with little pieces. You could even use the scalpel blade just in there like that, and just keep going around until you've got that ridge, the bit we're going to gild, perfectly masked off. Okay, gild that. If you share the bone with Tim, please. Share that around really. Yeah, Tom's very clever. Tom's using palette knife.
I was only.
No, that's a good.
Cheating.
Yes, you're doing well with your palette knife. So,
the worst part,
great bit of improvisation there. Tom used his palette knife, which is just something you can, push it down, consolidate it.
Quite good to get in the corner. Which
Yeah, absolutely.
My tooth couldn't do.
Yeah.
Did you just say your tooth?
The tooth.
Hound's tooth.
Oh.
Hound's tooth, yeah.
Okay, so once you're happy and you've done all your masking, then get gilding. So we're going to gild, and remember the first bit was the burnish. So you could do the agate if you wanted. You could burnish the bowl with your agate, or you could wire wool it like we did the first time round. Give it a quick burnish on the bowl. Now, because of our time constraints, everyone's bowl is quite thin. And yesterday, I noticed that at least a couple of you had gone through your bowl while you were gilding. And that's because you are working the gilding water in too much. And I don't know in painting, whether you really do this thing of what I would call laying paint on. where you're laying stuff on a surface without disturbing the surface underneath at all.
Maybe
And-
it's not a
and-
wash.
Hmm?
Maybe like a watercolour wash.
Maybe, I can't really say, but you know, this is critical to when we get on to gessoing. And with the gilding water, you want to be laying on the top without hardly touching the bowl, so that you're not actually disturbing the bowl, you're just getting the water on and letting it soak in.
Give it a quick touch on the bowl. Now, because of our time constraints, everyone's bowl is filled. And yesterday, I noticed that at least a couple of you had gone through your bowls while you were gilding. And that's because you are working the gilding water into much. And I don't know in painting, you know, whether you really do this thing, what I would call laying paint on, where you're laying stuff on a surface without disturbing the surface underneath at all.
Maybe
And-
watercolour
and-
wash.
Hmm?
Maybe like a watercolour wash.
Maybe, I can't really say, but you know, this is critical for when we get on to gesso. And with the gilding water, you want to be laying on top without hardly touching the bowl, so that you're not actually disturbing the bowl, you're just getting the water on and letting it soak in. And
I sang at a friend's wedding.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
It's one of those things that gets stuck in my head from time to time.
Yeah. It's a nice one now stuck in your head.
Yeah, not bad.
How are we doing?
Good.
Right, let's get some golden.
The Vaseline.
See how greasy my hair is today.
I made sure I didn't wash my hair.
Yeah.
As much grease available as possible.
So wet it first. Look at it wet, haven't
Yes. Another gilder I was watching on YouTube
Yes, by all means.
uses the side of her face. You know.
Yeah, that's
And she says that she started off using the Vaseline, but found that her tips got clogged up. But actually, I watched what she was doing because she says she still uses the Vaseline sometimes. And that's interesting. Yeah, you've got your own technique there. Did you learn that when you did this before?
I've seen someone just do that and they just went
I do that. Darryl taught me how to do that.
Do what?
Because I thought,
Right.
well, I just turned it upside down and stuck it straight
Yeah,
up.
okay.
Yeah.
Right, so let's
Lots
just
of lawyers
Yeah,
do.
Darryl taught me how to do
You've got a gold forehead.
that. Oh, good. I'll keep it.
let's just
Only because I can never straighten it out once it's all crinkled.
Yeah.
So lazy. I think
who wants to demonstrate? Tom's pretty good at it, and you're pretty good at it, obviously.
What? Flipping the
For the camera. So, you know, the method we learned yesterday, I think is a good way to start, because you're always going to end up in the situation where it hasn't gone according to plan, and you need to learn this teasing out of the leaves. However, you know, Tom and Anne, you've got a good thing, which obviously, and you've learnt. I mean, I've always done it the way where I just dump the load, and I find it quite quick because I've become quite good at the teasing out. However, I think this is a really good thing to learn. So do you want to just lay those on, Anne, and then so we can start with a fresh one? And then I've never tried this before, but I've seen
You
another
understand why,
technique.
yeah.
I've got a leaf there that's gone all horrible, so I'm going to try
Are you a
and
bit more
get rid of that. This is a first time ever cane, so probably not a good idea to film. Now, for some reason that,
Right.
maybe because I haven't got my glasses on. Whoops. Don't get this bit, this is going to come out in the other bit. So, right. Okay, so another technique that I've seen is to lay the knife sort of about there, I think. I get that bit to flip over and like that. Whoa, that didn't work because I haven't cleaned my knife off now. I'm just going to dump these somewhere.
Do you want me to get a knife?
So I'm going to give you these. Try and get this. Okay. As I say, I've never ever tried that before.
It worked
Here's an
really
interesting
well.
one. If you end up with stuff stuck to your knife like that, or even your fingers, just wipe it up on the parchment cover of your thing, and you'll be able to get it off the knife and just back into your cushion there.
So here, with that stuck in, you can see under the leaf that I've put down, there's like air underneath it on this section. How am I...
Yeah, well, that you're going to get with just either your feather, you know, or your cotton wool. Literally, something that's hardly, you need no pressure at all, just to get that down. And just push it down
It's
on.
breaking when I do that.
Yeah, well, it will break because it's bridged basically. It's bridged over the surface. Okay, now try this.
Yeah.
How should we get that open without being able to handle it? There we go, okay, maybe. Right, okay, so let's just sort of start there. Okay, see this here? So we're just going to get that open like that.
Not great.
It's well done.
I sang at a friend's wedding. Yeah, I did.
This is just not going according to plan at all.
It's a nice one.
I can see the
Well,
logic behind it.
yeah. But even if you just do it like this and just straight away like that, they're just in this book that it's not coming out nicely. Yeah, we'll try again. We'll give you loads of these thing here, Rog. Do it would be great if we could just get a knife under there.
Yeah.
No, give us a while to.
Yeah.
Hope I finished one sheet. Do you want to do the?
Okay, so yeah, if you could demonstrate to Kane, and everyone might like to have a look of your technique for getting.
No,
No,
no. So
You're done?
you've done good.
Of course, the disadvantage, and from my point of view, is my way's probably quicker actually, in that you can only do this if.
we roll.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, you've got your own technique there. Did you learn that when you did this before?
I've seen someone just do that and they just
I do that. Estelle taught me how to do that.
Gosh.
Like a glove.
Yeah. I thought that's going to go disastrously.
That worked.
Oh, good.
Did you do it first?
Yeah.
Nice. I think it's probably an easier way of doing
Yeah.
it.
Who wants to demonstrate?
Lovely.
What? Flipping the
For the camera. So, you know, the method we learned yesterday, I think is a good way to start, because you're always going to end up in a situation where it hasn't gone according to plan, and you need to learn this teasing out of the leaves. However, you know, Tom and Anne, you've got a good thing, which obviously and you've learned. I mean, I've always done it the way where I just dump the load and I find it quite quick because I've become quite good at teasing out. However, I think this is a really good thing to learn. So do you want to just lay those on, and then so we can start with the
So
second.
have Vaseline.
Over here.
I've never tried it.
This.
Thank you very much. It's good to get that brush as greasy as possible, I think. Just the thing as ungreasy as possible.
Okay, so another technique that I've seen is to lay the knife through about that. Get that bit to flip over and like that. Whoa! We just stop to the knife.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. If you end up with stuff
Funny shaped
or
moulding.
even your finger, just wipe it up on the parchment cover of your thing, and you'll be able to get that. So here, that stuff.
You can see under the that I put down, there's like hair on.
Okay. I want to just come around and look over my shoulder a minute. This is how it should be done. But I mean, this is like decades and decades of doing it every day.
Plastic goes.
Yeah.
And when he chops it so roughly, it
Yeah.
doesn't go anywhere.
Are you sure he hasn't got gold that's about 5 times thicker than ours?
I'm afraid not. We've just got 30
Years of
years of
skill.
doing this every day.
Yeah, I guess that's.
So he doesn't bother about flattening it properly.
This is oil gilding. Okay, so he's not doing the water, so it'd be a lot slower if he was having to do the water.
This is what I could say about this.
Because he's talking, you see it's running around the place.
It's very hard. Sometimes you could even lose all the leaf. Now I use these small pieces to put them.
So this guy is called Massimiliano.
He's Italian.
Italian, of course he is.
Massimiliano.
I don't know where, Nick.
Massimiliano Guielli. Massimiliano Guerri. Send me an email and I'll send you a link to them.
That was
Yeah, so the critical thing, so with that technique he's doing there, yeah, but look, you can't do it on a cushion. You can't do it with a protective cover. Is I wasn't able to open the book, but he's got the book overhanging his cushion there so that you can get it open. Whoops, still, it's going to take a lot of practice to get good at.
An eyebrow pluckers would be really helpful.
Now there we go. Okay, so I managed to open the book, so that's part one. Then he is putting the knife across and lifting that and just flip it over onto the cushion.
Oh, very nice.
And then,
well done. Wow.
you know, so there's another technique. And that's going to be quicker than what Tom and Anne was doing, because you're not constantly putting the book down and so forth. But I think you could possibly put the pad down on your bench and be able to do it, I think.
Disadvantage.
You can see he was carrying it like this, which
My way's probably quicker, actually, in that you can only do this if you're working with just one leaf at a
yeah,
time.
so I mean there is definitely a technique of opening the book without damaging the leaf. There we go, sort of more or less.
The sheets that you've given me, are they all ones that have joined themselves together beforehand, or have I done that?
No, I think what I was trying to say is I'm getting it wrong. So I've got complicated frames. You'll face the problem of bridging. So bridging is where you might have a dip or something in the frame, and the leaf will try and stick either side of the, let's say the valley. Let's say you've got a valley in your frame. You put a leaf on and it sticks to the tops of the sides of the valley, and then it'll break as it tries to go down the middle. Yeah, that's called bridging. So what you do is you would work in lays. So you'd do one side and you'd get a piece in there, then you'd come and do the other side and get a piece in there. So you don't always try and work in one go. And with this, the one we're doing, I've divided my leaf into 6 here. And you know, I would probably do one side then the other. So let me just come on Rogers here and get a nice, you know, wet out the whole section there, just laying it on, trying not to disturb the gesso, then make sure the bit I'm going to work on has got plenty on.
Yeah, because it just ends up sticking.
And just go in from one side, and then the greasy face isn't working for me. Then going from the other side.
Right.
So doing it like that, you know.
Gotcha.
I've
been doing it like trying to get one sheet, do it all.
And then go at that, you know, tamp that with your feather your cotton there. Okay, so whoa, it's difficult to move around with this.
It'll be like Luigi now.
Massimiliano. Where's my knife? And he's incredibly cabby, we would have called it in the army. He's sort of gung-ho about everything. Yeah. He's just sort of wiping his sort of knife on his jumper and so forth. Yeah. I can't move around with this.
You sound like you're having fun, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tim, what we just we're talking about, what you're doing very well, is working in lays. So I've divided my thing into 6 parts. Yeah. And rather than trying to do the whole, so I'll just show you. Whoa! Rather than trying to do the whole bit.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, just do this side and then that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I can do that.
Funny shaped mouldings.
Put this down here right on top of your frame. Just use up these bits before they blow all over the place.
Nicely gilded and masking tape though.
Yeah, it helps a lot when you do it in two sections.
There are some bits for you to use up there. So we've got another 5 minutes or so on this, so 10 minutes at a push, but we'll want some nice clean rabbit skin glue afterwards. Is anyone running short on clean rabbit skin glue? You've got plenty there too.
I'm good.
Hopefully you still got some in your blue. Well, everyone got some?
Yep.
You got some?
Yep.
Okay, well if you put
This is the technique, but what I can't.
a little orange ramekin.
Just that frame will do it.
Nice, yeah.
Just good friendly business instead.
Are you sure here? I think you've got
But that's always, you know, when I've been embarking upon this project, other people said, aren't you competing with yourself?
No.
Our wealthy customers will look at these videos and say, you're doing it. Yeah. And then we're going to have 4 parts of rabbit skin glue size and 1 part of water. So that'll be 10 ml of rabbit skin glue size and 2.5 ml of water. And give it a good thorough mix. We won't filter because you're going to do such a good job of mixing.
You see how he's using a combination of blow and the knife. Yeah, but he's
So 10 and 2.5.
10 of rabbit skin glue size, 2.5 of water.
I don't know where I am.
Every time you look at me like that, I'm certain I'm nearing death.
It's a love the way you get it.
Yeah. Absolutely sweet. Not that. I feel good about myself.
Mind you, I quite like that look.
That's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
Definitely got that
failure.
antique vibe, I like it. Yeah.
What have we got to put in here? I wasn't listening.
Oh, 10 ml of rabbit skin glue and 2.5 of water.
10 of rabbit skin glue. Is that rabbit skin glue with a bit of whiting in it?
No, definitely not. That's, remember,
Right.
this is why we put the clean aside. So remember, you would normally only make up one batch for your whole work you're going to do.
So what?
But you put the clean aside. So
this is clean.
Your clean is your blue one.
And it's
Yeah.
80 sort.
Yeah, okay. Use some of Roger's
That's all right.
because we had done that. A bit stiffer, and then use your watercolour brush.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, just under there, that'd be great. Get that shine on there. Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
And then your other one as well, amazing.
Definitely use that.
Nice, yay.
Perfect, thank you very much.
No worries.
So there's another.
Side, or did you
No, I just went on
Well, did. It was.
That's
So there has been quite there.
But you can tell it's good because most of mine has gone on the masking
because
tape.
you're not constantly putting it.
Something.
Well, I think
So I was cleaning all this stuff in.
you could possibly put Okay. So what we could do is just start off with probably a little bit of our 320 or 400, you know, quite a fine sandpaper. So you see there, it'll take me 4 coats of black to go over that gold. We're probably only out of time today for 2 coats. But even if I'm just keying it, now you see by keeping the sandpaper flat on this side, I'm not going to disturb either the top or, importantly, this what they call an arris in woodworking, which is just the roll of the timber, so it's taken the sharp edge off. You don't want to be on that because that is that rail there, that arris is what catches the light. So just keeping that nice and flat there will allow us to, even if we're just keying this surface, so that it'll accept the bowl better, but ideally we'd get rid of that gold, but doing the best we can. And even just keying it will mean we get better coverage with this. And again, we're getting the bristles of the brush sort of nice and flat so that they're not going to roll over onto the surface where we don't want to get it. And we can get quite quick about it doing that. So again, we're going to put, you know, get as many coats, thin coats on as we can, so that we end up with just solid black edge. So that's what we're doing with that one. And then we're going to do the same on the inside. So let's find a nice clean edge there. So on the inside of the studio frame, again just coming down and just getting a nice thin coat along there. And of course once we're in there it's easy. 8mm is typically the gap, so you know we don't even need to come right in, we just need to, you know, do enough to cover that. And we definitely won't get it in one go, but you can see how already it's tidying up that edge there. And as long as we just use the shape of it, you know, we'll be able to do this without any masking or without too much difficulty. And it will be a matter of going around a few times. So that's on that one. And then on this one, we are going to do not only the back of the frame. Now this is going to be much easier because we're not trying to cover over anything. We're going to get the back of the frame there,
European hell.
And even if actually we leave a tiny bit of the red showing through, it produces quite a nice finish, as long as we've got, you know, nice flowing strokes there. And then carefully we're going to get the top, and again just using the shape of the brush, just drawing it over that so we're not going onto the inside, and we'll get a good clean line on there without any masking, so that we're going to get that top section and the back section. We're not going to try and get it all in one go, we're going to build it up with thin coats. And these thin coats will dry quite quickly, so we can get hopefully
Quick price on this.
a few on there.
Quick price on that.
£45. Thank you, Sir. Okay. Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not happy with that frame, mind?
Oh, we're
I've got
just
45 quid.
45.
Good value.
Yeah,
This misused animal bit.
is there such thing as a rabbit flu? I think
Yeah,
that's going to
probably.
be.
Rabbit skin flu.
Yeah.
Out of Gilding, the other laboratory.
Let's do this first. What grade sampling do we use?
400.
Is it?
Oh, with the bottom.
Gesso dust is quite a nasty thing to breathe in. So.
what's the 400?
Did she write?
If she didn't, how can I have it?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
You've got the frame? Three?
I wish.
I think this probably is pure sand. This is a series 10. Like the ones I've supplied you are probably
More
series
layers,
10.
more intensely black.
Yeah. So the ones I've supplied you are frozen, which are synthetic, and they're the series 101, which are very good. I mean, I've got rosemary. Yeah, I contacted them, and funnily enough, was it one of our artists?
Like that advert for
Not
Highlands.
from UK, may have been UK, but someone told me use expensive paints and cheap brushes, and it kind of strikes a chord with me.
I only use the very best paint I can get. Micro
Yeah,
olive
absolutely.
oils and graham golds and
Which you can get from
I know.
anything
Yeah.
you need.
yeah.
But I think the trouble is,
It's got very quiet.
you know, all brushes have wooden handles. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to start with your white that you've got left over. And if you're short, which you are, but even so, because you won't need much of this, so start with your white. And I think rather than going by our measuring spoons and stuff, I should do this just by feel, to be honest. But 3 whites, so you're just going, that's plenty, that's about right.
What, this?
No, what you got on the spatula, that's plenty. Then 1 yellow, so a third of that yellow.
Who needs white?
Is this to make this clay?
This is to make the clay, yeah. So it's 1 part of yellow to 3 parts of white. Then that makes 1 part of bowl, so then we'd have 4 times that quantity of glue and then 6 times that quantity of water. So it's very thin compared to our normal bowl. And it's more of a wash. So it's like more of a wash than the bowl, you know. Now, then, before you apply this, you're going to want to just get some sandpaper and fold it so you've got a really neat hard fold, and just tidy up that back edge there of your frame. So you're getting rid of any bits of bowl that are left over, bits of gold, sorry, that are left over, and just tidying it up as much as you can. Now, obviously, all of you are going to have to unmask your gold at this stage.
All the masking off.
All the masking tape off. And
All my gold is
most of you
not where it's supposed
need
to
to
be.
catch up on doing black on there as well.
Yeah, it needs a lot more fixing.
Very satisfying.
Where they live, it started raining for the first time ever.
Even if we haven't finished our gold leaf.
Well, I don't know how you know, I mean,
Some ASMR content.
Yeah, it is. That's for the TikTok.
just finish off the script, you know, I mean, it may be the case that not everyone's going to get it. Okay, so here we go. Now, I'm using this, and I'm using my watercolour brush.
That's very nice.
Look at the state of
Yeah,
that.
like a,
How not to do it. It's good to have films of how not to do stuff next
Yeah.
to stuff of how to do it.
we'll go over here.
So I'm using my watercolour brush now, and just carefully and as neatly as I can, I'm just getting this wash on in this central channel here. And these brush strokes are going to show, so I'm, you know, being as careful as I can, and I'll do this a few times and then go back with the black and catch up and tidy up and so forth, and trying not to go over, but we'll be able to touch up with the black as a final thing. And I'm concentrating really in this first time round, I'm concentrating on making sure I've got right up to the line here
If you get a chance.
on the outside and right up to there. So get those bits in first, and then quickly, before it starts to dry too much, just draw it out and get it so that the brush marks are going to be as attractive as possible. So I'm trying to get this wash and mitering the corners here. And really, this first time round, I want to get I want to get into
You know, you put some white
the edges
Yeah.
so that.
What else goes in there?
Yellow.
Now, I'm being particularly careful where it's touching the gold here. I want to make sure that
I'm making this up.
I run my line of bowl
Just a little bit, isn't it?
Don't
right
mix it
up
up yet. You want to mix
to
it up
where
with-
the gold
with
starts.
the water and the
Get a nice
Yeah.
clean line
That's
there,
too much.
and then I can get this other line here, and then work over that section.
I think it was
Yeah.
more
So-
yellow than red, wasn't it? But was it 30mm yellow, 10 to red or something like that? It's basically just making it up.
And how much water in
I haven't put any in yet.
Okay, then I can keep on working that until I get it as neat as I can, and that's just the first coat. And then, so now where I've sloshed a bit over onto the black and stuff, I can go over and tidy the black, and just keep going at that until I've got it all looking as good as I can.
And there is a bit, yeah. I think
Come in.
there's a bit of black in it.
Okay, someone wants to use mine if anyone's struggling. Or...
Yeah.
We just want to know how much water to put in.
Yellow.
Okay, so water 6 times as much as you've got there. Now the thing is, you know, mine actually, with the recipe I've given you, I didn't put enough water in, I'd say. So, you know, you could put more in because we want it to be strong enough to clean up our edges. Can you see what I've done? My first time round there. So we want to be good enough, and now actually I could actually just go around with literally almost dry brushing just to tidy this up. And you see now I can even just with what tiny bits left on there is enough just to fill in any bits which are a bit not as tidy as they might be.
Big bake-off energy.
And again, that you see I'm pulling, now it's wet, the red underneath, so if I work that anymore, so I'll have to wait till that's dry now. In fact, probably I've done as much as I can on this go round, and I'm going to have to leave that to dry now. Okay, so if you could all get up to that stage, quickly as
What's
possible.
it? White and yellow and...
Then a hint of black. I'd put a hint more black in there, and perhaps a little bit more yellow.
It's lighter than mine.
There's a bit of black stuff in there.
Oh, great.
I mean, really,
Thank you.
yeah, that looks good. Yeah. So, really, the point is not to get an exact thing. It's to
So you're not going over the top edge, no? Just
you're trying to get it tidy because you haven't started your black yet, and just get it. You know, really now you're trying to get this as neat as possible. Put loads more water in. None of them
It's ridiculous. They all want to fix their leaks and typically it would be a 6-year lease, 2-year rent agreement. And you pay a lawyer, it's probably £1,000 nowadays, to do a lease like that and the rest of it, and that's what they want. So they're not protected, you know, if they don't have it. So that's the line you get. Well, because when we were sort of family-owned property business in Yorkshire, they were very nice. That was now the day. They were very nice. And then the lady who now owns mine, you know, she let us have it.
Now you could use your stubby brush for this because that will obviously is more brittle.
Like Gideon Skull.
black bowl.
I've got some here, Jules.
It's alright, I've got.
Keep this one, sorry, Ross, can you like turn it like towards us?
You've sort of tamped everything down a bit and...
I've tamped it. I will tamp it.
Okay, so time's up really for that now. So you can keep...
Oh, you've got the equal right side there.
It looks great. It looks great from there. It looks like Anne Louise's. You sure you're next?
That is it.
So that's one part of 2.5 mil of wet mold, and then we're going to have 4 parts of blue size and 1 part of blue size. So that'll be 10 mil of blue size and 2.5 mil of blue size. Thorough mix. We won't filter because we're going to use such a good mixing.
How many lines of wash are we putting on this boat? How many layers, sorry?
Just one at the moment. You're just trying to tidy up the edges, basically. So try and tidy up the line. You've started your black, so just try and create a tidy line between the black and the...
I have done exactly the opposite.
And then, particularly where the gold is, create a tidy line across against the gold, and you know, we'll be coming back. And then in the middle section, just get it as good looking as you can with nice brush strokes done in the way I've said.
Every time you look at that, I'm certain I'm nearing death.
What a mess.
I quite like that look.
That's what I told myself.
What have we got to put in here?
10 mil of rabbit.
Thanks. That's right.
Oh, right, yeah.
No, definitely not. Remember, this is why we put the clean aside. So remember,
It was a real shock getting in. I remember.
so we put the clean aside. Your clean is your blue one.
Yeah, no, Tom, can I just show you that? Because you haven't quite got the white edge of it.
There's white on here. There's plenty of white on there.
That's probably enough black there. Then that black you can use to make more of that if you want. Okay. So yeah, so you might want to, you know, keep a bit of white perhaps as well, just to do more in here. Although that yellow is not back on, so
That interior part, I'm using that white.
yeah. So let's just get use. Who's got my mix of?
Here.
Rogers here. So you're using the same brushes you're using. Okay. Remember my 4 times off at least. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're trying to get the clean line down here, up against the gold.
Oh, that's looking great.
It's very nice.
That looks like it's supposed to look.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I like the wash. No, because that's what you want. You don't want that thin
Want the red wash.
It looks a bit Oh, sorry.
With our second
I like your
Oh,
wash.
this
I like
We
your
want
wash.
it to look good in the gaps.
I'll try and get some more.
So yeah, I should get a bit of that off.
Oh, God.
Doesn't matter, it'll be a finish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but you
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was suggesting you might want to use a bristle brush, you know, because
The effect you got with that.
it will give you more of a brushy effect, you know, more of a bristle. You'll get more kind of gaps in your paint lines, so more grain. But that's the sort of thing we're looking for at this stage. And then if we've got some black available, we can then just get this top done here.
You can tell it's good because most of mine is gone from
One coat on there.
So the burnishing's coming up nicely.
Are you burnishing your gold now?
A little bit.
Yeah. I think.
Tell me to stop if I'm not supposed to.
No, I mean it's up to you. But you know, I've got it in the programme a bit later. But if you've done your little clicky test and you think it's the right time, go for it. So you see, we don't try and get the whole thing in one go. We go around quickly with very thin coats, just building up. And you know, quite often, if you're working thin enough on a decent sized frame, you can go around again, you know, straight away because
it's on time that you need it.
Hey, that's coming along.
Has actually burnished up quite nicely.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so Anne-Louise is, you know, ahead of the game here, and she's decided it's time to burnish. So you can do your clicking thing with your hands, and see if you remember not to touch anything that's wet while you're doing it. So if your clay is still wet, don't get the agate anywhere near it.
Beautiful.
You'll get into trouble. So really, I'll put it in the programme later on. Interesting one here, Tom. You've got a bit of the black on the. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start pouring quite gently. Now I would normally have a tablespoon for this, but I'm just going to use. Who's got a completely dry?
So we've all made our
15mm one up from here.
and
Is your dry?
Mine's dry.
yeah, in the process of tidying up everything. So on the studio,
So
we're going to do the back.
what we're going to do is your
Just
mix nice and liquid. Now, who's got the mix ready to go?
Oh, I thought I had. Oh, sorry, I turned it off.
mine's ready.
Okay, well let's go to Roger.
Oh no, mine's off as well. Damn.
Okay. Let's put that much down the way and we'll go ahead. So yours nice and ready to go. Okay, so the mix is nice and warm, and we can leave it in the bain-marie because we want to keep it quite loose and nice and warm. Okay, so what we're going to do
320
is we're going to start pouring.
fine sandpaper. So you see there, it'll take me.
Now, one of the things about gesso is you want to be careful not to introduce air bubbles into your mix. So one of the things is we never put a dry brush into the gesso because the dry brush will have lots of air in it. So even if you were going to put a clean brush in, you would put it in your water first, so that you know you're not introducing any air into the mix. So then we start putting the
that rail, that arrow just catches the light. So just keeping that nice and flat there will allow us to
start putting the
so that it'll accept the bowl better, but ideally we
everything all right?
we'd get rid of that gold, but doing the best we can.
Right, start adding whiting. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to, you know,
Getting the bristles of the brush so a nice
drop it from a great height. Just ease it in there,
roll over.
so that we're trying not to sort of, but you're just going to keep loading the whiting in.
We can get quite quick about it doing that. So
Some people sieve it in.
you know,
I've never found it necessary to do that. We do, in the business, we use a food mixer. We're using large quantities, so you know, obviously you need to be doing at least a litre at a time to be using a food mixer. And we keep putting it in until basically it forms a little island whose top is poking out. And we can allow it to just settle like that and keep going. Sprinkle it in so that you're not going to have too many big lumps.
So you know we don't need to come like
and you just need to do enough to cover that. And we definitely won't get it in one go, but you can see how already. And you can see that now the island is forming there. Use the shape of it. We'll be able to do this without any masking or without too much difficulty. And it will be level going round a few times. So that's on that one. But still. And then taking it in there. On this one, we are going to do. And you see there's a lot going on there. Of the frame. And there we go. Now I can. It feels like it's not going to be sinking in so much anymore. And I'm easing it so that my island's sort of got sides to it and it's gone down. And I can see that it's just not sinking in anymore. And so once we get to that stage, we can start mixing. And then carefully we're going to get the top. And again, just now what we're going to do, just drawing it over that so we're not going on is just side, with the glue brush, just start getting that down. On there without any masking. So and just keep mixing that top section and the back section. We're not going to try and get it all in one go. We're going to build it. And that will take a few minutes to mix. Let's see what jars are available. So we can get hopefully a few on there. 45 pounds. Thank you, John. Right, I think what you're going to have to do is, if you all pour out your
Gilding water.
Well,
we're a bit short. Yeah, we could use some of these. So pour your gilding water into one of these, yeah, and then you can use your jar. And I'm going to stir that now for probably 3 or 4 minutes, working the brush against the edges of the pot, figure 8 motion, and just keep going until such time as I think all of that is completely worked in. And you can see there are some air bubbles forming, but as we work it, hopefully those will come out. A nice figure 8 motion there, working against the bottom, working against the sides.
How much quantity wise are we making? Are we in the whole cup?
Well, we're using the cup, yeah. So. I think in my experimentation I had used more of the Sizey White priming frames, so there's not much space left in this, to be honest, with what was left over. Okay. Now, because the cup's quite nice to work from, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this now into the jar. And you see there's still tons of lumps in there. So what I can do is I can just clean out my cup and keep now pouring backwards and forwards until you're pretty sure that you've got all the lumps. And perhaps work that in the jar now and just get that clean. And eventually we're going to get to a point where we've done our best to stir out all of the lumps and then get it all in the jar. And make sure the original container is completely lump free.
So you
And
don't
then-
ever, sorry, you don't ever make a paste with a bit of water and whiting before you add the glue. So you do a yogurty paste and then you add the glue. So it's all really smooth. So that was always the way I did.
And I'm going to pull that through the muslin. If you need a bigger bit, I've got plenty spare. Probably do need a bigger bit. Yeah, just hold that along the side there. Yeah, okay, so you'll need a decent sized bit of muslin for this. This one wasn't big enough. All the lumps and everything. And then just like we did for the bowl, you can pull that out and just squeeze everything through the muslin. So what we've ended up with is this completely smooth, lump-free, double cream consistency. And there we go.
Just like that.
There we go, huge bits. You're big enough at all?
It's getting a bit, we used a bit, a little bit more.
You got a decent size bit?
I could do with one. Thank you. It's disappeared. Yeah, brilliant.
So you know it is okay to fault after you've burnished,
Yeah.
but you do it very dry.
Yeah.
And you don't want, one of the things which everyone's done to a certain extent, like here on Roger's one, is you really don't want to get gilding water on top of your gold. But I've said you don't want to. One of the things we do to antique the gold, you know, once we've done all this, is put the rabbit skin glue on top of it. So, you know, I mean, if you want this perfect finish, you don't want to, but if you've done it like this, you might actually consider doing it everywhere, doing it on the whole frame. That's, you know, a way. If you've made a mistake, one of the ways of recovering from it is to do that thing all over the frame, you know. You know, at the nice blood temperature, not too hot but loose enough. And the first one, like our primer coat, we want it to soak. We want it to soak, you know, get it right into the grain of the wood. Because although we've put the two primer coats on, you know, our wood's still very grainy. So wipe off the 4 times and then start getting that in. And this one we're going to really brush it in everywhere. Not too thick, we don't want it, but we want to make sure we've really worked this in. And all the way around. Just remember, trying not to introduce air bubbles into our gesso, so getting it in, absolutely everything, working it in to every little nook and cranny. No runs, we don't want it running, but really working it in there. I should really have been using yours, Tom, because in fact what you can do is you can have this one because you've got one more than everyone else.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give you this one. You swap it with Roger for your one. So you've put 2 coats on everything so far, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right.
That's a square one, yeah.
Okay. So now straight away I'm going to start.
If it goes wrong, you'll know. You can blame me.
Okay, so probably just watch at the moment, Tim and Anne, rather than get started, because it's quite important that you really learn this process. So this first coat, we're absolutely just scrubbing it into the grain of the wood. You get it, it's all about making sure that it's not going to come off, and really getting it in every nook and cranny, every groove, and so getting it out. If it's pooling at all, we don't want that. We want to keep it nice and even.
Is it important that the
thin.
gesso stays warm as you're putting it on to react?
Yeah, you'd keep your gesso at sort of blood temperature, not above the 40 degrees. Remember what I said about the evaporation and so forth, that it's not the end of the world if you put subsequent coats on which are weaker than the coats underneath. So sometimes you might every so often just put your brush in the water and then put it in. So you're just constantly introducing a bit more water, which will be fine. But if it evaporates and gets stronger, that can cause cracking. Okay, so now this first coat will actually dry quite quickly. And you don't actually allow the coats to dry. What happens is, if someone could just go to the front window in the gallery there and bring one of the little gessoed ones. There's a stack of the... Oh, don't worry, Rich, don't worry, come here. Have you? Oh yeah, there we go, perfect, that'll do, yeah. So if you look at this, I might have been playing, you were talking about having colour in your gesso, I might have been playing with putting a bit of pink in there. But you see that crystal white colour there? That's what it's like. Can you hold the flowers, please? That's what it's like when it's dry. And we don't want to let it get to that stage. Now if you see here, there has gotten a sort of slightly dull colour. And you'll notice already on this, I've got areas which are still glossy, like that. And I've got areas which have gone sort of slightly dull and a slightly darker, duller colour. And when it goes from the glossy straight on, quite sort of white colour, to that matte, dull colour, that's the time to put the next coat on. Okay, so this first coat, we're scrubbing it, really working it into the grain and working it into every nook and cranny, making sure complete coverage. And it doesn't matter if you just, like we were talking about the towel drying and so forth, and just you can keep going round. Make sure any hairs, even that one's dried into the coat below, and I can get it out with a fingernail. So right, so I've gone right round, I'm happy, inspecting that I've got the gesso everywhere. It's very easy to see where you've done and where you haven't done at this stage. And we're going to now wait, and give it a few minutes. And as you put more coats on, the drying time varies a bit between coats, and you just have to keep an eye on it because you don't want it to go that crystal white colour. You want it to go to the just the dull matte from the sort of glossy white that it goes on. Now, just while that's drying off a bit, I was going to show you about making filler. Okay, so I'll just show you quickly. And really, all you do is get some of the gesso, put it in the palm of your hand like that, and as I say, your blood temperature will keep that warm. And then just get a bit of the whiting, and if you just work that now, you will find once you get the right mix, you'll actually start to make a little putty.
It's like pastry.
Yeah, very, very, the sort of consistency of pastry, very much that sort of thing. And now, once you've got that right, yeah, I've made quite a mess of this. You can make a filler. So if you've got any sort of little bits of, there we go, you see that's the sort of thing. Now, I made a complete mess all over my hands, but you can see there I'm getting a sort of filler consistency. And I can keep working it in my hand to get, now, because it's keeping warm in my hand, and slowly, I mean, it might be quite good to do it with the palette knife even. And you see, there we go, might be, I mean, the point of doing it in your hand is to keep it warm as you're working it. That beautiful filler consistency there. So now, you could use that for any dinks or dents in your frame or whatever, and you'd do that probably at this stage after this first coat, and just build it into the layers. Okay, so the second coat, so that was the first coat, and thanks very much, Rush. So let's just see if I can see a really good section. Now, obviously, the bigger the frame, the more difficult it is to get the timing of the next coat exactly right, because there's some time that's elapsed. But that side, you can see, has almost completely gone the sort of dull matte colour. There's still little tiny glossy bits on there, on that side. Still tiny bit, but we're getting there. It's all going, still a tiny bit glossy on there. But you'll see once you start doing your own, on that inside edge is completely matte and gone the dull colour along there. Okay, so it's always difficult to get the whole thing uniformly at a stage, but once there's none of the actual dry stuff on here at the moment. Nothing has gone the crystal white, so I could let that go for a little longer before putting the next coat in. But the next coat we're going to stipple on. Okay, now anyone who's not familiar with stippling, I'll do it on the back here so we can see, it literally is just pouncing it on like that. And now we're trying to get some build now, and the point of stippling it on is to create, an uneven surface, so that when we start laying our subsequent coats on, there's some little peaks and just some tooth, good word to it, some tooth for it to get on. So there's the next stipple coat. So if I go all the way around the back to start with, And again, it's just like the primer coats, you know. The first one we want to get way into the grain and so forth before we start, you know, trying to actually get the actual substance on there.
Finishing itself.
Now the thing is, you know, what I'm excited about is that we're, you know, typically you would learn to sort of sand and water polish and all of this, but this gesso, and you know, you could make it. The reason, you know, I haven't shown you a definite quantity or whatever is because you can make it thinner and you can make it thicker and you can leave it, because these ones, the one Roger just had, and you'll see some of my things up there which I've deliberately sort of, that one sort of one up from the pile, you know, I've absolutely slapped everything on, and this too, you know, but that side there, I don't know if you can see it, with, you know, definite brush marks on. For some finishes, that would be a lovely base, you know, and then perhaps paint on it or whatever and sand through, and it'll sand through on the high points and leave the paint and the low points and stuff. So
paint straight on that then?
oh, absolutely, yeah. Our barn door finish, we gesso first, and then we paint on top of that, and it's a particular way the process works, because remember the thing about the gesso, it will always re-soften in water, and that's basically the principle of our barn door finishes. So the paint is, so I mean we kind of, it was always developed with the Farrow and Ball paints, and they seem to work quite well, but you know, we wet it so much that it soaks through the paint, softens the gesso, and then that's creating a wheat layer which rips up. And it's not like rubbing through, it rips off in chunks, which is, you know, much more attractive and much more like an actual barn door, you know. Okay, so stippling on everywhere, like that. And then we'll wait for that, obviously, to go the dull colour. So I think that's enough. Okay, so if everyone starts, I'll finish this one off. You start on your other one, Tom. Just Roger, I'll finish this for you so I can just time everything a bit. And then you go for the other one. Well, I'll finish this for Tom actually, but just lend me your bench for a minute. And already, you know, there are parts of this which, there you can see there are parts are going dull matte colour. So we're not going to be too long with this one, which is Tom's one now. Did you give your square to Roger?
I did, yeah, he's got that.
So, yeah, so there's your one, okay, and we're just going to keep it. I think the secret of this sort of interrogation is the coat there. Yeah.
great.
Make sure everyone's aware that
Grabs your eye, that's what you want.
Yeah, I guess.
What stuff?
like the black and the yellow and stuff.
Oh, on the edge, yeah. No, I cleaned what I could off. Yeah, just be careful around the edge. There's a little remnants
Oh, right, yes,
of
of
black
course.
and-
Thank
So yeah, we use, and we'll sell on the website, 3 types of wax. And I'll talk while you're working. We've got 3 types of wax, and generally in traditional frame finishing, wax is the final finish. You also sometimes use shellac, but we're not going to cover that. That would be more in oil gilding, so we're not going to cover shellac today. But the 3 types of wax we have are general waxes. You can use the Libron stuff, but I would avoid. Yeah, you can use that. This is the same thing basically, except as I say, Morel's is the top. Professional paints sort of manufacturer to furniture businesses and so forth. So it'll be at least as good, if not better, than the Black Bison.
Right, yeah.
And we used to use the Black Bison, but we've come over to this. So I would avoid ever using any wax which has got any red in it.
Right.
So stuff like, mahoganies or even the sort of antique pines and stuff, they just don't work well. So we only ever use 2. We use our dark wax, which is a Jacobean or Tudor oak in the Black White Bison wax.
Yeah.
But this Jacobean wax, that's our dark wax. And that will completely change the colour of your midsection on this frame.
Yeah.
And we're going to use this on both frames, and it completely changes the colour. So we sort of factor that in to our finish. It's part of the experimentation getting to that stage, but it's very nice that it actually stains the bowl a little bit as well, and it's a very nice finish for on top of the black and everything else. We have a clear one, so on the white obviously we wouldn't want to use the dark because it'll make it a sort of taupe sort of colour, which we don't want. So we could use this clear, but then on top of the gold, which it is a good idea to wax to give it some protection, water gilded gessoed frames are always susceptible to moisture damage. So you don't clean them with any liquids or anything like that. You're aware, and it will always damage the gesso and the finish on them if you do. So, but a little bit of protection is afforded by waxing them, and this is the best sort of wax you can get for any kind of restoration work. It's called Renaissance. It's a microcrystalline wax. So these are all based on beeswax and carnauba wax and stuff like that, organic things. This is a synthetic compound and specially developed for this type of thing. So on top of a clean gold finish, if that's what you want and you don't want to affect the colour too much or anything, this will be better than the clear. It's better, you can get it really thin. Generally I apply it with a bit of cotton wool or even just with my finger. Yeah. We'll be selling either in these tins like that. I think they're about 14 quid for a tin, I can't remember exactly, for the clear and the thing, more wax. So a tin will last you forever. If they go a bit hard, I put turpentine in them and just work it with a palette knife and get it back again. These we sell in 2 sizes, and I think it's about 11, 12 quid for the small size, 20 something quid for the larger size. And again, one of these will last you forever, to be honest. A small size even will last you forever. So these ones we will sell, once I work out how this artist filling station things is going to work. So I've put a price for 120ml of this on your price lists, in which case we'll scoop some out of here. But we buy big buckets of this for the workshop, we used to. I don't think we do anymore, do we, Anne?
No, we just buy the standard.
Yeah. Well, we can buy the big buckets if we were, doing the artist filling station.
The clay wash, there's some one,
Okay, I'll call the hold now to your finished frames, just in order to give everything a chance to dry. Now, you don't have to wax them. So, if you want to do more work on them, for example, you can take some of the jam jars and take stuff home, and I'll demonstrate that. if you just gather around just for a sec, and we'll just have a little look at this. So I would normally use a Stanley knife, or what would you call this as a generic thing, as a utility knife. Now, the one which we'll be selling on our website, there's certain things nowadays, because it's worth keeping up with modern innovations. I mean, these have come on so much in the last 10 years that it's worth making sure that you've got the modern thing around your studio. So one of the features on a modern one of these is you're able to switch the blade around from the front with that little button there, and that is such a useful feature. Saves you can still, this one you'd unscrew to get into the internal compartment. Well, in fact no, you also have a blade storage there, but having that quick change on. So we'll be selling one of these on the website. I mean, they're more expensive obviously than cheap things, but you just never look back. So you might use that, but for this I've given you each a scalpel, and so I'm going to try using this and see how it goes. I haven't done it with a scalpel before. But what I'm doing is I'm just using the edge of the MDF here as a guide, and I'm really getting through all of the linen, cutting right the way through everything. And when you're cutting a line, whether it's in mount card or anything, it's not a good idea to try and do it all in one go. It's always a good idea to start off just getting yourself a groove to run in. So, and I'm hooking my finger around the back of this, so I'm keeping the blade in the same position, using it sort of like a fence there. And basically, if I keep going all the way around like that, so that I've cut right through all of the linen on that nice line there, then I should, with luck, be able to get underneath this and just lever it up, and once I've started it, let me cut that, it should just tear up, and I will get a really nice professional looking clean edge on my panel. And although this one's still slightly wet, it's dry enough that it's holding in place. If you did it too early, the glue might not hold everything while you're yanking this bit off. But you can see that's what we're aiming for there, is nice, neat, clean corners. Could always tidy this up with a bit of sandpaper if we wanted to get it just looking really fresh and pristine. And that's then going to be our really professional looking surface to paint on. So if you've got time for that, to work in that with your scalpel, do please be careful with these. They are exceptionally sharp, and you'll need to fit the blade if you're going to use. Everyone's welcome to just take turns on that if they want. If you're going to open your scalpel and fit a blade.
I'm good.
Cool.
You done?
Coat. Yeah.
So, Tom and Percy, some hot water.
Yeah, I mean I've got. I've got.
That's good, mate.
I'll do that next.
That looks brilliant altogether, doesn't it?
Okay, how are we doing? So we've got
It
half
goes
an hour.
together really
And,
nice.
do you want me to talk through waxing before?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you can, because you know exactly what you're doing. But I mean,
I'm gonna wax that now.
Yeah, both of them.
Nice.
See how they come up.
so what wax do you think you're going to use?
Brilliant.
Works really well.
I normally quite like dark wax on frames.
Yeah.
So the Jacobean will
But
probably.
yeah, I don't like it. I mean, that one out there, all of its coats. And I'm just tidying it up and making sure there's no overruns or whatever. It's one there. Oh, they have, yeah. So, yeah, no, what we're going to do is we're going to use the really nice stuff on the gold and the white.
Okay.
And here is the dark wax for all of this, I'd suggest.
Yeah, fine.
So yeah, that looks. You happy with that? It's even enough. See, the wax will dull the gold down a bit as well,
Yeah.
so it'll help disguise that bit where
Yeah.
you got on the surface. All looks completely dry, so that's good. So there's that, and we're going to use a stubby brush, which might as well use the one I've used before. So, do you want me to get started, or
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
happy to go for it? Okay, so literally just get paint. This wax is actually, yeah, it's the right sort of softness. Now we're not looking to leave any of the wax on, so I can start on the back so I can get lots of it off there. Because really, obviously, just the thinnest layer on the gold, it won't really show much on the back here. But just like painting, you know, I'm going to get it off my brush onto there. Thing is with wax, obviously, it's what they call thixotropic. So that means that as you work it, which basically is warming it up, it becomes softer. So it's quite a good idea to keep working it quite hard and, you know, keep going over it, because it goes hard quite quickly. And we've got a trick for that, which we can get it off with wire wool. Now quite often I actually apply, losing a few hairs there, quite often I apply the wax with the wire wool. But I'm just going to come a little bit on this inside edge here. Nice. And you can see it's quite. I should have done my frames actually, because they're ready to go. But on mine, this bowl has gone white for some reason. The black bowl, I don't know what it is, but it will instantly go black once I put the wax on it. It's like wetting it. You know, things go completely different colour when you wet them. Well, that's the effect the wax has. So this is the quickest and easiest way to apply the waxes, with a brush. We don't care too much about the back because, you know, it's not going to show if we've got any excess on there. But on the gold here, we just want the thinnest possible layer. Don't know what that is. No, that is a scratch in the gold. And you can see it bringing the gold into a much more antique-y gold colour, which I personally like. And again, this is the finish. Is one of our finishes, is the dark red underneath with the dark wax on top, and that's what you saw on the finished frame out front. Sorry, I've done it all for you. But so then, okay, now we can use our wire wool to take any excess off. So really gently on the gold, because we don't want to distress it anymore, but we're just taking any excess off, and there we go. Now that's showing you the process on this frame, which is relatively easy to do because the black's not going to show the dark wax. Leave it now. Now we've taken the excess off, we'll just leave it a few minutes before we buff it. The more difficult one, I'll show you on mine. Let me just get one.
Could be worse.
So do
What's that on mine?
Thank you.
on mine.
On my own.
Yeah.
Okay, so now started on the black there, and just get some of the wax off on that before I even start thinking about doing that midsection. But obviously this is going to show on the midsection, so it's much more important that now I'm really careful, and I won't want to leave any great streaks of excess wax on the frame. I want to get it all off. And you know, sometimes like on our barn door finishes, we're putting quite a lot of wax on, and there's lots of sort of dents and divots in the frames which it's getting into, so you can end up working quite hard with the wire wool to get the excess off, to get it sort of right. So now I'm again, like with the gold, I've only just got a little bit of wax left on my brush before I go in here, and I'm just going to start working my way around there, and you can see it's changing it really a huge amount. And I do want to get it in everywhere, so I'm having to work quite hard to get it actually into every little.
Yeah, that's still with this stuff.
There, you see it's completely changed the colour, and there's a bit there where I haven't got it in everywhere, so I'm going to have to get in more. And it's easier to get on if you have a lot on your brush, but then it's going to be more difficult to get off again. So you know, and I'm working fast, but I'm trying to avoid the gold at this stage. If I wanted to do the gold in the antique finish, the same as the other one, wouldn't be a problem, but I'm actually going to put the microcrystalline wax on the gold. So I'm getting it all on. And then you can see up here where I've got too much on in places, but you know, get it into everything first, make sure the whole surface is covered. Just using the bristles of the brush to avoid, get it a line along the gold there. Okay, so that's good enough, and now get my little bit of wire wool and just start working it until I've got the level of finish I want. And again, sometimes you have to really go at it a bit with the wire wool to sort of warm up the wax, to soften it, to get it off again. But you can see how now I'm starting to get the kind of finish we're after.
Looks great. That's my one, isn't it? Oh.
It is. It's yours for a mere 300 quid. And again, the wire wool, you know, it kind of loses its cutting power, so just keep moving it around and stuff, and you can get a sort of fingernail in behind it to get right in those grooves and everything.
It's 24.
They're tight.
And all the time,
Yeah.
all the time, I'm trying to avoid touching that white at all.
That's
Particularly
really
the
looking
white.
terrific.
Okay, so now, you know, when I do this, it is burnishing the wax onto that black. So you say, I mean, a couple of coats of paint and some wax, perfectly acceptable finish, but it will never look like that.
No, I know, it's just
You know, I mean, that's you see the red coming through it in that black. So it's just completely different, just really to the look of black paint. Okay, so once we're happy there, we can just keep, you know, it's worth a little work with the wire wool. Careful of the gold. Just to get any,
Great,
you know, like the frame I was showing you earlier, you know, there's a fine line between distressed and dirty, you know, and we don't want this wax. We don't want this wax to look dirty, you know, so we want it to just look aged, you know. Or aged and dirty.
I mean, that is absolutely magnificent.
Okay, so now happy enough with that, and I'm just going to get some of the cotton wool. Has anyone got a little bit of clean cotton wool there? And my little tub of microcrystalline, which I had somewhere.
Brush is slightly damp.
Amazing.
Okay, so now there's only a little bit left in my pot here of microcrystalline. But you could use the clear wax for this. And now I'm just going to use some cotton wool, and I'm getting it on, or even grab it out with my finger, bearing in mind my fingers are quite dirty. Just going to get that all around on the gold and on the white. Now I could, of course, use the clear wax. You can kind of see it happening here a bit. I'm just going to get a bit of that in there with a finger and just make sure I have completely covered all of that white.
Shall I turn off the brown as well?
Yeah, please. Okay, so another thing, you know, that I haven't really covered is that you can burnish the bowl. And you know, if you want the bowl as a colour, burnishing it will bring it up to a really high gloss, and it's a beautiful finish. So again, burnish with your agate, because almost always you'd want to give it a little burnish with your wire wool, perhaps before you wax it. But now that I'm happy with my gold, and you know, I've got the microcrystalline everywhere, or clear wax, because you could be using the other clear wax, I'm now going to use what's left on my bit of cotton wool here, just to, that'll clean off the other wax a little bit as well. And as I say, I can use that clear wax just to clean off any bits of the dirty wax.
If you
with clear wax, I mean, to remove it completely, white spirits. But if you want to just, you see how much is coming off now on there, so I'm just getting a bit more of that off. Ooh, what happened there? Don't know what that was. What was that? See it coming from there.
I think it was some of this off your finger.
There was it. Okay, so final part of the process, we come to our glass cloth.
Oh no, you'll need to use one of yours.
Let's use your glass.
Just under.
And Louise, is your
Is that
fan
this?
switched off?
No, it's one of the rags I supplied you. There we go. Nice. Yeah, okay, so this is a good type of cloth. You know, just a soft cotton cloth. But these are great for burnishing wax. And this is really quite a physical process. And you can actually get your fingernails and, again, still removing any excess dirty wax or dark wax that I don't want. Still, you know, until I'm completely happy with the way it looks. And then really grab the thing bodily and give it really hard buffing.
Look at that.
Now I can feel heat on that because I'm really going for it at this stage.
Oh no. Must have been damp there.
Oh, that's, yeah, it's a bit risky, isn't it? When it's just been.
And you have a look at my gold there with the microcrystalline wax. I've kind of retained that high gloss burnish on it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's
And that's really, you know, where the microcrystalline comes into its own. There we go.
Fantastic. Yeah, that is fantastic.
lovely depth, isn't it?
So,
Beautiful.
so Anne will take yours back to work.
Yeah.
If you leave everything on your bench, and Caroline can perhaps get a photo of your work with yours.
Yeah.
Sometime, if that's all right with you. And I think everyone else we're going to reconvene here tomorrow.
Sure.
Can't do that,
Bit of black
well, you
chalk.
can do that because you've probably got wax on there, so you know, all crack filler.
Right,
There's
yeah.
a particular polyfiller stuff which I've got some of in my kit.
Difference in sort of the years.
How did you find the course?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's a privilege to be on a course where the person running it knows absolutely what they're doing and can teach all the little tricks and little hacks and ways of working. I've gained so much from it. I'd like to go back to the beginning and start again actually, but I'll have to do that in my own space, in my own time. It's been terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing, thank you, that's brilliant. Roger, you ready?
In a month or so to see what you've put in it. And if you have sold them, please get photographs before we go.
How did you find it there, Roger?
I thought it was absolutely incredible. It's really therapeutic, as well as a bit stressful at times. But it's a new skill added to the list, and hopefully I will be able to use it in the future in other ways. It's definitely something that needs practice, and a lot of just more experience will help with that. And I think definitely very useful, and look forward to using it in the future.
Yeah, brilliant.
So Anne-Louise, how did you find the course?
Yeah, it was very interesting. Good to solidify some skills that I sort of knew about, but really getting into it. And lovely to be able to, and like I said, pick up a skill that hopefully I'll be able to use in the workplace more often, helping the hand finishing department. So yeah, really good fun.
Right, and did you get on with your colleagues here?
They were a nightmare. No, they were absolutely lovely. Really nice to be able to share the space with some fantastic artists and lovely people.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to thank everyone who came on this course, and it's a leap of faith really to give up your time to come and help out with this, because everyone here is hand-picked, and I wanted particularly, I wanted to work with, in no particular order, Tom, Percy, Anne-Louise, and Roger's been a great addition to the course, all of whom have different approaches, different styles of art, different skill sets, and so forth. And this was a learning experience to me. I was trying to do something that I'm not aware of ever having been done before, condensing 5 days work into 2 days. You can go back over it the next day and put more gesso in the crack. However, what I tell people about, and this is worth bearing in mind if you're buying our gesso frames on but you wanted more gesso, I say if you're going to put gesso on top of dry gesso, you start the whole process from scratch. You put the rabbit skin glue coat, you put the sizer white, and then you put the gesso on. But what I've found is that I wet the gesso around the crack, and I actually work it a bit with my brush in a similar way to our water polishing. So we're starting to just get it a bit wet and then put some more gesso on. So there's just a few little tips for further down the line. So this we're now going to lay on, and typically when you're laying the paint on, you're only going in one direction, and you're really hardly touching the surface. There, you're just getting that coat on there like that. So I'll try and do that so you can see going out. And so as I say, just literally hardly touching the surface, just laying the paint onto the top of our stipple coat there. And that's how we're going to do all of our subsequent coats. It's just laying it on. And although I'm still doing my 4 times, getting the excess off the brush there, I've got quite a lot on still. So I mean, this motion, whatever you'd call it, I always do 4 as a matter of habit, but depending how much you push, obviously depends how much you get. So I'm now pushing less hard so that I'm keeping, quite a decent quantity of gesso on the brush, because it is now at this stage all about building up the thickness of your gesso coat. Okay, now this is where the cheaper, our glue brush, which we started out with, this is where I like the actual pointed sash brush, or more of a pointy sort of string bound brush or whatever, because the area we've got to pay most attention to is these corners, and there's no problem with, you know, like I've shown you before, get it all in there, just dribble it all in and then pull it out away, but make sure it's very easy to get an overbuild. You see how that's sort of forming a curve around the corner? Just break into that and get rid of it, because we're trying to get completely even build everywhere. Okay, so really matter now of just going all the way around, even thickness everywhere, and not really working it as such, just laying it on. And yeah, I mean, I said go in the same direction all the time, but obviously now we're on the internal bit here, we're doing our pulling away from the corners thing, so just get it away there, but trying just not to disturb the coat underneath. Make sure you remember, because you know you need to be quite disciplined about this, and just follow a pattern of the way you go around everything, because it becomes more difficult now to see where you've done and where you haven't done. So I'm doing a whole side at a time, and remember, I have to remember the back of the frame, which easily gets forgotten, and this vertical face of the sight edge here. Those are the bits that tend to get forgotten. I'll just keep working my way around. And we're going to do 2 more coats like this, so get this coat on everybody now, and then we'll wait till that goes the dull matte colour and get our last coat on, and in the break between we'll be just doing some more tidying up of our finished frames. Okay, seen enough everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll just finish this one off. Tom.
Yes.
Nice by a brush. I might
Cooling a bit.
Tidy up a yeah, a little bit of run there. So, you know, this is all part of it really. Mm-hmm. And you know, businesses that gesso by hand, you know, they'd have a bench with, you know, with 4 or 5 frames on. And they'd just be moving between them, sort of seeing where they're up to, tidying them up.
So by the time we finish the end,
you
start again on the first one, it would be ready to go. Yeah.
I mean, we work in a batch of about 6 frames for the spraying. You know, because you can get into a rhythm. It's the difficult thing. I don't know if you felt Darryl with us at all. The difficult thing is remembering where you're up to. So when I do it, you know, I divide the spray room into separate sections. And so I've got the one. So you remember that we've started the very first thing we did.
Too late.
No, because you know, as I've been saying, you've got to have that first coat soaking into the grain for everything
so
else to stick to.
I can't do it to those because they've got...
Well, you need to buy another one.
Yeah.
Try putting some rabbit skin glue on it and put some gesso on it. And
did you sand it back a bit, or
well, it's just... If you imagine you've got 11 of these.
That little sort of sea picture.
I
sorts of things on top of that. And this is the result. And I think I did put some gesso on top of that. So it's not complete now.
Yeah. Well, with the right picture.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is Fletcher Pushmates. Has anyone struggled with bendy tabs and, you know, putting fixings in the back of frames ever?
What, those little tab things?
Well, I've discovered these, which I love.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. There's a couple in there. That's the thing, and you get a tool. So these are called Fletcher push points, and Fletcher's probably the top quality manufacturer of sort of framing equipment. And I'll just grab this is the push point tool called the Pushmate. So there's the Pushmate, and rather than, the trouble is with the bendy tabs which we supply, you know, quite often it's difficult, especially glass, to get out beyond it. So I've been looking around for something that we can supply to people they can put in themselves. Now, if you have this tool, 14 quid for the kit, the tool and a little box of these, and you know, you just push that in there, job done. And it's really nice because it's flat, so that this material can expand and contract freely. However, what I've found is that you don't even need the tool. This is not even a particularly broad head on that screwdriver. So if you had a better head on the screwdriver, whoops, it's magnetic or something. Maybe they're supposed to be. But anyway, if I just get that started there, I've found that even with this quite small screwdriver, I can just, push it in with that. There we go. And I can get them out again. Yeah. You just get the screwdriver in behind them and you can lever them out quite easily. So I really like those, and that's one thing. Now the next thing, next product that I'll show you is a marketing dream. Where is it? Yeah, come on.
A marketing dream.
It is indeed.
My kind of marketing.
Yeah. There it is, right. Okay, so you know you get all different size crosshead screws. So we generally use two types of head. We use this very, very small Phillips head, like that, which takes the tiny head. And if you've got a little, you know, power screwdriver or any screwdriver, you'll need a different type of screwdriver to do that one, to do this, which is a standard Posi. Posi number 2, in fact, is that which is sort of the one I prefer. And a lot of woodworking screws are
I keep
a Posi
having to
2.
change the tip on mine.
You keep having to change the tip because you don't have a King Dick.
I do actually. That's what my nickname was at school. Sorry about that. Right,
Well, but I'll prove this here on someone's bench. It's just a dirt on this bench. The King Dick from America, marketing dream.
Only in America.
And I hesitate to say this, ladies present, but I did make up our own little bit of marketing for this. It comes with a free bradawl, so make your own hole / innuendo. So there we go. So there's the Posi 2.
Yeah.
This fits 6 types of crosshead screw, and it works with everything. And that's without making a hole with a bradawl. I'll just drive that straight in there. But equally, the tiny little one.
How does that work then?
Don't know. I mean, it's a patented design, but it's you know, it works just as well with the tiny little one now.
Look, can I see
6 different types of crosshead. Every type of crosshead screw that will work with the one screwdriver.
It doesn't look anything special, does it? Wow.
Little
That's a wow.
Sweet, thank you.
Have you got any of that white clay to do the, you know, I've run out of pots to put things in.
Right. Well, what do you need?
The white clay to do the inner.
The white.
Yeah.
I'm just heating up some white.
Okay, great.
You've
But then
run out.
well, I used it for the.
Oh, of course you did. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think everyone do. Shall I just look at your one? Have you got enough? Oh, you've got loads in there. Yeah, everything's on it. Shall I pass that around?